So when I was invited to speak, my husband's first thought was, we have esteemed guests and a student that was, graduated from Mandarin School. He's like, why did you get invited? I said, because Ontario doesn't have multilingual, that's why I started a Mandarin school. See how desperation pushes people? And that's why I was invited. So, my name is Yollanda, and just to kind of give you a little background about myself, I'm a very unlikely candidate to have started a Mandarin school. And that just shows you the level of desperation I felt. Yes, Sandra, I know Sandra's smiling as she knows the story. The desperation I felt to have been pushed to this, this place, a happy place, of course. So I'm an engineer, graduated from Waterloo, same as Stephen, and I was working in corporate sales, actually, and marketing. And I really wasn't happy with my job, and somebody had asked me, what would you do if you won the lottery? So I said, oh, I would want to work with children. And he said, you don't need to win the lottery to do that, right? You know that, right? I was like, oh yeah, that's true. I don't. What am I waiting for? So then I actually came to this building, not telling you how many years ago, but a few years ago, and I got my B.Ed, and then I started teaching math and physics. So that were my teachables. So I'm actually still a teacher officially with TDSB, Toronto District School Board. I'm on leave right now. And that was kind of how I got there. But now, if you ask me the same question, what would you do if you won the lottery? My answer would be, I would buy a building, and I would have each floor to be a different language. One, of course, will have to be Mandarin. It would be a different language, and kids can go and be taught, and they can choose to be taught in different languages.
What a great idea.
Thank you. Because as we all know, this is a slow process. It's not going to happen within her, school age lifetime. And so that's what I would do if I did win the lottery. And so as a result, I did start a Mandarin school. I kind of gave away the ending, but I wanted to kind of show you. Oh, is it possible to go back one slide? Sorry. I kind of clicked the button by mistake. I was too excited when you guys were moving around. So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of introductions about my journey learning Mandarin, learning English, including my husband's journey and actually my daughter's. And then I want to talk a bit about what I wanted for my daughter, where the gap was, and what I did to fill that gap. And through that process, I talked to a lot of people. So I wanted to kind of share with you my research process. Definitely not as exhaustive as Dr. Cummins, and definitely not the statistical type of research, but very anecdotal. And then what did I learn from that process? And then also why I started my own Mandarin school to bridge that gap. So a bit of introductions. I kind of told you a little bit about myself. For me, I came to Canada at the age of 10, and of course I was fluent in Mandarin and not fluent in English. And at that time, my parents were very wise in encouraging me to keep my heritage language. That was a time when learning Mandarin was not cool. You're not cool if you could speak Mandarin. You're cool if you can only speak English. I remember one of my parents' friends actually bragged at a dinner party that his son can now no longer speak any Mandarin. And so my parents were like, why is this a good thing? But for them, that meant he was completely now in the Canadian society. And so it was actually really sad, when you think about that, because he has now lost connection to really his family. He can't speak to them anymore in Chinese, in Mandarin. So because of my parents' urging, I kept my Mandarin. I always been an avid reader, so I continue to read. And now I'm still fluent in speaking, but I see one of my teachers from my Mandarin school here, and she can tell you I'm not fluent in terms of business Mandarin, but I can talk about food and random chit-chat. But in terms of writing, I can't really write anymore. And reading, I can still read, but so definitely it's deteriorated over the years because I've never been educated in Mandarin other than Saturday school. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about my husband. I always use him as a counterexample because he really is. So Brian, my husband, he was born and raised in Toronto. His family was from Hong Kong. And so he, up to the age of 8, he was fluent in Cantonese. He even won some like calligraphy contest at Chinese school, which he always brags about. But then now he can barely speak Cantonese. And one of the sad things is for me, family is most important to me, and it's that connection to your family that gets lost. So 2 of his grandparents can only speak Cantonese, so they never talk to them. They can't chit-chat. They can't shoot the breeze because he doesn't have enough Cantonese to do that. His brother actually doesn't really speak to them at all, other than like a wave, you know. And I think that's really, really sad. And one of the reasons he was only able to speak Cantonese up to the age of 8 is, any guesses? Why 8? Why did it stop after that? School. Right. The use of English in school was a lot more exhaustive by that age. But there's not one other reason. Something happens also to kids when they get older. What happens to kids? Socialization. He had no friends that spoke Cantonese. And when he went to Chinese school, it was out of his schedule. He had to go on a weekend. What are other kids doing on Saturday? Watching cartoons. They're not in Chinese school, I can tell you that. So you know what? Eventually he's like, wait a minute, I want to do this. My friends are not doing this. Why am I doing this? And then he has a younger brother. Parents are tired. They're like, fine, enough. You don't want to go, you don't go. You lose Chinese, whatever. And so you choose your battles, right? So that's why my husband is speaking any Chinese right now. And that actually gave me a huge sense of urgency for my daughter. And for my daughter to be able to not lose that. So this is Caitlin. I didn't realize she was coming, but she is here today. So this is Caitlin. Caitlin is now 4 years old. And because she has a grandmother that has been a Mandarin teacher for 15 years, our mom does a bit crazy about Mandarin. She is fluent in speaking Mandarin. She can read picture books. She cannot read in English, but she can read in Chinese because that's the only books I read to her. She can write 4 characters in Chinese. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she can even input simple characters into my phone using pinyin, which she sends messages to her grandmother. And so this is her now. And so my hope for her is that in the future, when she's 18, so what she can do now is great, way more than her dad, her uncle, and most of their cousins, and my friends. But what really measures success is actually what she can do by the age of 18. What can she actually use Mandarin for? The fluency of the language when they're actually going to use it. And I really need her to be able to speak Mandarin, because if she doesn't, she's not going to be able to speak to my family in China, and they're not going to learn English just for her. And this is one information I don't know if you have read or heard of, is that in 2017, China is taking English out of their final exams. So China, one of the hardest, one of the most difficult obstacles for students is the final exams at high school. So China has decided they're taking that out. They're taking English out. There's more focus placed on Mandarin. So if China as a country, 1.4 billion people have decided English is no longer a priority, guess what? Mandarin better be a priority, especially for people who can speak it. And for me, definitely most importantly, is that I said the connection to her family, her heritage, but also Chinese has a huge amount of knowledge. Sorry, I meant a huge amount of knowledge is in Chinese, and I would really love for her to not lose access to that. So that's why I would really love for her to be able to learn Mandarin. I want her to be fluent. And another thing I should have mentioned here, and we were talking about multilingual, is that we want to send her to a French immersion school. But another thing is her dad has learned Spanish, and we really want her to learn Spanish as well. I just wish we could do this a little bit more seamlessly, you know, and not having to do carting around to different schools and weekends. And so, but that's my hope. If I won the lottery, ... So, in the process of feeling this sense of urgency that my daughter may not be able to keep her cultural heritage, I talk to a lot of different people. So who are these people that I talk to? I talk to many experienced language teachers, not just Mandarin teachers, but French teachers, Spanish teachers, any heritage language teachers. I was asking them, what made your students keep their language? What did you do? What were you doing differently? And what can I do? I talk to so many parents of different generations, because when you see parents of my generation, even my parents' generation, what did they do with their kids, and what was the end result, was really, really fascinating to me. My dentist, just one short story, she has known me since I was a baby. So she came here, both her kids were born here. Her and her husband are fluent in Mandarin. Well, guess what? Both of her kids cannot speak Mandarin. I was shocked when I heard that, and I asked her why, and she said, I can't keep forcing them to go to Chinese school anymore. I just had enough of that. She was bribing them with McDonald's Happy Meals just to go to Chinese school every time. And she thought, I just can't keep that up. So she stopped. And now they don't speak any Mandarin. I also talked to experts, linguistics grads. I wish I had met Jim a little bit sooner, but it's okay, I'll talk to you after this. Speech pathologists, child psychologists, pediatricians, and of course, teachers. I'm a teacher myself, so I talk to fellow teachers, elementary teachers. So I basically talked to anyone that would listen to me. And you know what? There was a lot of similarity. And being an engineer, I like collecting data. I really like data. And I like finding patterns in this data. And I did find some patterns. So I'm going to share with you 7 patterns that I found. So what did I learn from all of these different conversations? I learned that it is really important, and Jim mentioned this too as well in his talk, is that you need to really capture that precious window of opportunity. And there's no exact time when it closes, but it definitely begins to shut down kind of roughly by the age of 5. And that really gave me a sense of urgency. I was like, oh my goodness, I really need to get started on this. And if you're not a tiger parent, and believe it, I'm really not a tiger parent, I wanted to do this because I'm not a tiger parent. And I know that my influence alone on her is not enough to encourage her to retain her Mandarin knowledge. And usually around 7 to 9 years old, they want to do what their friends are doing. And what their friends are doing is what's cool. So I want their friends to learn Mandarin. And that's one thing that I've been hoping to do. So, and also, language acquisition does not equal language retention. Just because she has acquired Mandarin now, and she can speak fluently and she can read, it doesn't mean that she will at 18. Look at her dad. Sorry. This is going on film. I'll play this at our 20th wedding anniversary. And another key thing is that friends and community support is a huge determinant of whether that person retains that language. Like I said, they want to do what their friends are doing, but also they want to do it in their community. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I did what I did, but we live in North Toronto, and so there are a lot of activities in North Toronto for children, but there was no Mandarin. And so if she cannot stay in her community with her friends, chances are she's going to want to do something else. And chances are I'm not going to be able to bribe her with McDonald's every single time. The modes of learning really need to be enjoyable and engaging for the children. So children are not meant to learn sitting in rows of desks and reciting the same thing over and over again, or writing the same thing over and over again 100 times, or getting dictations every week, and only to cram for that dictation and to forget it by next week. And children need to see the point of why they're learning. And really children of all ages. You know, when I taught high school, I would teach Pythagorean theorem, and my student would be like, Miss, why are we learning this? And I need to find a reason. If I don't have a reason to teach them, why am I wasting their time? And that's something that you really need to be aware of too. I mean, as teachers, and also teaching children. They deserve our respect, and their time deserves our respect. And that's one of the reasons why in developing our curriculum for my Mandarin school, I need to make sure that a lot of the things that we're doing have to be tied to an authentic life situation. If they can't be used in real life, why are we teaching them that? And the last one is to ensure that children retain their language. They absolutely need to be driving the learning. Yes, we can encourage that interest in many ways, but they need to be the primary driver as much as possible. Because if they're not, that is not going to go on forever. Who learned piano in this room? Okay, Type A room, yes. Do you still, okay, I should say, how many people still play the piano in this room? Think of the amount of money and time your parents spent on piano, and on me too. But every time I think of piano, I think like, so it's not an enjoyable process. Well, when she thinks of Mandarin, I don't want her to think, so I want her to be the driving force for learning Mandarin. 你喜欢学中文吗？
不喜欢。
See what I mean? I lost control even at age 4. Thanks, Caitlin. So that's why I started Panda Mandarin. And I guess because I'm an OISE grad, like 90% of my teachers are from the OISE MEd program. And I have to thank whoever is the program secretary for that program, because you have given me such amazing teachers. I have one right over there, Rachel. And then they even came to, because they're in class, and they were like, I want to come and see you. And it's just an amazing group of teachers, not just women. We do have a male teacher too. He's just not in that picture. And they really bring so much enthusiasm and passion of learning. And we do a lot of things, and we experiment together on how we could teach children to love learning Mandarin. And the really neat thing about that is, in my community, in her school, kids would say, Mommy, I want to learn Mandarin. And the parents would be like, why? Because, they don't have Mandarin in their heritage. And the kids would say, because it's so much fun. And I was like, yes, did it. And that's all I really want, is for them to really feel like it's fun to do this, and for them to really feel like this is something they want to continue. And I think just to kind of end this, those are our models: fun, engaging, and authentic. Those are the 3 words I always train my teachers to think about when they're putting together a lesson plan. I say, is it fun? Is it engaging? And what is it used for? And that's, I think, the most important thing for us as we're developing our school and trying to help our community to embrace multilingual education. One language at a time. We actually have French right now. We're offering French, mainly because she's learning French right now, and it's delivered in our lesson plan and curriculum model. And somebody asked us if we could do it in Spanish. I was like, oh yeah, I want her to learn Spanish. So multilingual is something that's on people's minds, but I think it just needs to be more accessible. I wouldn't have done this if Ontario had legalized multilingual education. I was very happy working at TDSB. That was my dream job. That's what I said I would do when I won the lottery. Well, now it's changed a little bit, but I still want to work with children. And so just to kind of end off, I really hope with the great work that Stephen, Sandra, the OME group is doing with the help of our awesome esteemed panelists, that baby in that picture will not be our age when Ontario has legalized multilingual education.